A ritual unfolded this past March in the humid and pine-scented air of Minden, Louisiana, that defied every cynical expectation of capitalism. Lesia Key sat across from her boss, Graham Walker. She had spent nearly 3 decades navigating the dust and noise of the finishing department. Key had joined the company in 1995 as a single mother with 3 children while drowning in debt and earning just over $5 an hour scrubbing industrial equipment. She expected a thank you, or perhaps a commemorative plaque for her 29 years of service. A colleague instead slid a blue and white envelope across the table. Inside was a sum of money that solved her past and secured the future in a single glance. Key started to cry. Walker was giving away an average bonus of $443,000 to each of his employees. Walker has spent the last decade steering his family business away from the precipice of irrelevance. He was handing her a check that would pay off her mortgage and seed a lifelong dream of opening a clothing boutique. He did the same for 539 other people. Walker had just sold Fibrebond, which was the company his father founded in 1982, to the power management giant Eaton for $1.7 billion. He conditioned the sale on a non-negotiable term. 15% of the proceeds would go to the people who built the product. That 15% amounted to $240 million. The average payout was $443,000. The number was significantly higher for the long-timers. This was not a bonus in a town where the median household income hovers around $30,000, and the economic engine often feels like it is running on fumes. It was a seismic event. It was a generational wealth transfer. Fibrebond sold for $1.7 billion because it sits at the choke point of the most capital-intensive infrastructure build-out in human history, which is the construction of the AI data centers. Eaton did not just buy a factory, they bought a timeline. They bought the ability to deploy power infrastructure in weeks rather than years, and Graham Walker knew exactly what that was worth. One must understand the precarious history of Fibrebond to understand why a check for $500,000 feels like a hallucination to a factory worker in Webster Parish. The company was not a rocket ship. It was a lifeboat for most of its existence. Claude Walker founded the business in 1982 using capital from a previous venture. The early days were small. 12 men built concrete huts to house railway switching equipment. It was unglamorous work pouring cement into molds to protect gears from the rain and the heat. The company caught a wave in the 1990s with the cellular explosion. Every cell tower needed a hut at its base to protect the electronics. Fibrebond built them. They pivoted from rail to telecom, and business thrived for a moment. Then, a fire broke out in 1998, and the factory burned to the ground. The fire consumed the machinery and the inventory and left behind a smoking ruin and a question mark. Most owners would have taken the insurance check and walked away. Claude Walker did not. He kept the payroll running. The employees trusted a man who refused to fire them when the work vanished and moved operations outdoors. They built shelters under the Louisiana sun while the plant was rebuilt. Loyalty was the currency of the recovery, but loyalty does not pay the bills when the market turns. The dot-com bubble burst in 2000, and the telecom build-out collapsed. Fibrebond saw its customer list shrink to 3 by the early 2000s. The workforce was slashed from 900 to 320. The company was bleeding. Graham Walker and his brother stepped in to run the family business in the mid-2000s and inherited a chassis with a sputtering engine. They spent 2 years liquidating assets and servicing debt. They tried to diversify into school classrooms and educational structures, but traction remained elusive. The employees stayed. Options are few in Minden. Walmart is the other major employer. You stick with the devil you know, especially if that devil gives you chips and soda every Thursday afternoon, which was a small ritual that Walker maintained even when salaries were frozen. The turning point came in 2013. The Walkers looked at the horizon and saw a storm gathering in the digital world. The internet was moving from the desktop to the cloud. Data was no longer something you kept on a hard drive, but something you streamed from a server farm. Those server farms needed power, and that power needed protection. Fibrebond pivoted again. They launched a power division and moved away from simple concrete huts to complex and steel-framed enclosures capable of housing high-voltage electrical gear. It was a gamble. Graham Walker took the CEO title in 2015 and asked his workforce to trust him on a bet that would define the company's future. They invested $150 million to expand capacity. They retooled the factory to build modular power centers. These are essentially massive batteries and switchgear rooms that could be built in Minden and put on a truck and dropped into a data center parking lot in Northern Virginia or Texas. The timing was accidental genius. The world locked down in 2020, the digital economy exploded, cloud computing demand verticalized, OpenAI released ChatGPT just as the pandemic boom began to normalize. The data center market exploded. Fibrebond sales climbed nearly 400% in 5 years. They were no longer begging for orders. They were turning them away. The acquisition of Fibrebond by Eaton is a signal flare regarding the future of the electrical grid. You need to look at the physics behind artificial intelligence to understand why Eaton, a Dublin-domiciled power giant, would pay $1.7 billion for a family business in Louisiana. Physically, at its base layer, AI manifests as heat. Current data center architecture is hitting a thermodynamic wall. A traditional server rack draws perhaps 10 to 15 kilowatts of power. The new NVIDIA Blackwell racks are designed to train the large language models that will ostensibly replace us all and draw upwards of 120 kilowatts. This is a 10-fold increase in power density. You cannot cool these chips with air. Fans are useless against this level of thermal intensity. You need liquid. You need plumbing. You need a complete reimagining of the electrical distribution system that sits between the utility pole and the silicon chip. Eaton calls this the grid-to-chip strategy. They are buying the capacity to prefabricate the lungs and heart of the AI factory. The AI sector is currently undergoing a painful migration from 480-volt alternating current to 800-volt direct current architectures. The logic is simple. Higher voltage means lower current for the same power, which means thinner cables and less copper. The savings in copper alone are worth millions when you are building a facility that consumes as much electricity as a small city. The acquisition of Fibrebond by Eaton integrates directly with this shift. Fibrebond builds the gray space, which refers to the external power modules that sit outside the white space of the server hall. These modules house the switchgear, the uninterruptible power supplies, and the backup generators. Eaton can cut deployment times by months by building these in a factory in Minden rather than stick building them on a muddy construction site in Ashburn, Virginia. Speed is the only metric that matters in the AI arms race. Microsoft, Google, and Amazon cannot wait 24 months for a substation. They need it in 6. Fibrebond offers that speed. Eaton has also agreed to acquire Boyd Thermal for $9.5 billion in a parallel move. Boyd specializes in liquid cooling and cold plates that sit directly on the GPUs to wick away heat. The synergy is obvious. Eaton now controls the entire thermal and electrical chain. They bring the power in from the grid via Fibrebond modules and distribute it through Eaton switchgear and remove the resulting heat via Boyd cold plates. They have effectively cornered the physics of the data center. Eaton paid 22.5 times the estimated 2026 EBITDA of Boyd. They paid roughly 13 times EBITDA for Fibrebond. Paying those kinds of multiples is usually what you see for fast-growing software firms, not your typical industrial manufacturers. It tells you the market is convinced that this infrastructure bottleneck is a big, long-term, and money-making problem. This productization of construction is the only way the industry can meet the 200 gigawatt capacity target set for 2030. The data suggests that modular construction saves up to 50% of the labor costs associated with traditional integration, but cost is secondary to certainty. A stick-built project is subject to weather, labor shortages, and permitting delays. A factory-built module is subject only to the supply chain. Graham Walker held a card that few sellers possess when he sat down with Eaton to negotiate the sale. He did not have to sell. The family owned the business outright. There were no venture capitalists screaming for a liquidity event. There were no quarterly earnings calls to manage. He told the suitors that 15% must go to the employees. His bankers and lawyers pushed back hard on the proposal. He was warned about lawsuits from folks who left right before the sale. Plus, there was the retention issue. Would an employee who just pocketed a $500,000 bonus actually show up on Monday, or would they just buy a fishing boat and head straight for the Gulf? Walker was adamant. He structured the payout to avoid the double taxation trap that often consumes such bonuses. The money would have been taxed as income for the family and then taxed again as a gift or income for the employee if the family had taken the money first. By making the bonus a condition of the acquisition, the money flowed directly from Eaton's balance sheet to the employee's W-2 forms. Walker and Eaton agreed on a vesting schedule to address the flight risk. The money would be paid out over 5 years. Leave early and you leave the balance on the table. There was one exception regarding age. Walker knew that 5 years might be a death sentence for his oldest employees. He carved out a rule that anyone over 65 or with a combined age plus tenure of a certain threshold would get their money without the handcuffs. Hong Blackwell was one of them. The 67-year-old immigrant from Vietnam worked in logistics, ensuring the factory had parts. She had been eyeing retirement but feared she could not afford it. Her heart sank when she saw the slide in the presentation detailing the 5-year rule. Then she saw the exception. I said, "Praise the Lord." Blackwell recalls in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. She received several $100,000. She bought her husband a Toyota Tacoma and retired to a life of peace. For others, the reality was more complex. The bonuses were taxed as supplemental income, which meant the IRS took a massive bite up front, often close to 40% when state and federal taxes were combined. Some employees grumbled. A check for $443,000 looks different when $160,000 vanishes before it hits the account. And yet the grumbling was muted by the magnitude of the windfall. One of the business development executives used his bonus to take 25 family members to Cancun for a holiday. This was a tribute to his father, who worked his entire life in a factory and died before he could enjoy retirement. The accelerating demand for AI is pushing the electrical grid to its limits. By 2026, data center electricity consumption is projected to potentially double, hitting an estimated 1,000 terawatt-hours, a staggering amount comparable to the total energy use of Japan, according to the International Energy Agency. This crisis is acutely felt in major data center hubs like Northern Virginia, where the existing grid infrastructure is effectively at capacity. Given that building new transmission lines is a decade-long process due to permitting and construction, the immediate needs of AI data centers cannot be met by traditional infrastructure expansion. The search for power has led the tech giants back to the atom. Small modular reactors are suddenly the most discussed topic in energy infrastructure. Unlike the gigawatt-scale cathedrals of nuclear power, past the SMRs are factory-built modular fission reactors that can be deployed on-site. While no data center is yet powered by an SMR, the regulatory groundwork is being laid. The Department of Energy is pushing for co-location of data centers at existing nuclear sites. Amazon bought a data center campus directly connected to the Susquehanna nuclear plant. Minden and Louisiana sits in a region with deep energy roots. While Fibrebond is not a nuclear company, its expertise in modular, regulated, and safety-critical concrete structures makes it a potential player in the containment structures for future SMR deployments. The grid bottleneck is driving a trend toward islanded data centers. These are facilities that generate their own power on-site and use the utility grid only as a backup. This requires massive investments in natural gas turbines, hydrogen fuel cells, and battery energy storage systems. Fibrebond builds the enclosures for these systems. Every generator needs a house. Every battery array needs thermal protection. As data centers move off-grid, the demand for Fibrebond products increases. The market for off-site data center power infrastructure is projected to reach nearly $80 billion by 2035. The demand is driven by the physical reality that the grid cannot keep up with the exponential curve of AI compute needs. Minden is a town of 12,000 people located 30 minutes east of Shreveport. It is piney woods country. The downtown is red brick, charming, and reminiscent of a film set for a movie about a simpler America that may or may not have ever existed. The economy here has been a roller coaster of extraction and war. The timber industry boom of the early 20th century gave way to the Louisiana Army ammunition plant, which employed thousands during World War II and Vietnam, filling shells with explosives. When the Cold War ended, the plant shrank and the jobs evaporated. Minden became a place where people left. The bright young things went to LSU or Texas and never came back. The businesses that remained struggled against the gravitational pull of the big box stores and the internet. Then, 540 households suddenly got $500,000. Mayor Nick Cox describes it as a shot in the arm for the parish. But it is more than that. A $400,000 bonus is not just spending money in a local economy where a nice house costs $200,000. It is capital. It pays off the mortgage. It buys the rental property. It starts a small business. Lesia Key has used her funds to open a clothing boutique in a nearby town.